This is a genuine pleasure to welcome Secretary Mattis to Israel. I've heard a lot about him, read a lot about him, and I think this is a propitious moment. Israel has no better friend than America. America has no better friend than Israel. And this is a partnership based on common values in the deepest sense of the word. We sense a great change in the direction of American policy.
And welcome back to Hannity. Now, that was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking earlier today, right before his meeting with the Defense Secretary Mattis right here in Jerusalem. And here's part two of our interview. So I had an opportunity today to get on a chopper, and Israel is about the size of the state of New Jersey.
Yep.
It's not a very big country.
Right.
And you're surrounded by Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and Egypt, at times, historically, not always friendly countries. And when you look at the borders, at different points, we are literally a mile or two away from where some of your enemies are. Do you think most people understand the security concerns here?
Probably not, because it's hard to imagine. You just have to compress the United States to, as you said, the size of New Jersey, and then put in a lot of militant Islamists with short-range, middle-range, long-range weapons, suicide bombers, trying to cross into your territory, terror tunnels being dug into you. So obviously Israel has security challenges unlike any other country. But Israel is unlike any other country because it's New Jersey, but it's New Jersey with F-15s and F-16s.
And bigger.
Well, courtesy of American help, by the way, which we appreciate. F-35s. And a very robust army. A citizen army that is willing and able to defend ourselves by ourselves. And this is the secret of our success. We've been able to, throw away all these attackers, repel all these dangers by the will of our people to defend ourselves. But in so doing, we've found partners in the region because they're being attacked by the same militant Islamists. And they realize that Israel is not their enemy, but their crucial ally in warding off the same threats. So yes, Israel is small, but Israel is powerful. Israel is attacked, but Israel is able to defend and occasionally attack our offenders.
Maybe an unintended consequence, and I remember the speech that you gave before a joint session of Congress. I know at the time President Obama was not exactly happy with it, but I thought it was one of your more powerful speeches that I had seen. But maybe an unintended consequence of this bad Iranian deal, and I concur with your conclusions about this, the nuclear-armed Iran is A squared, B squared, C squared, radical mullahs, weapons of mass destruction, threatening to wipe Israel off the map, is not a consequence the world should ever see.
I'm threatening you. And all your allies.
Well, we're the great Satan.
Right.
You're the little Satan.
We're the close by. We're the closer Satan.
Right.
We're a mini United States right here in the Middle East.
Well, the only democracy in the region.
The West stops here.
The West stops here. So my question is this: as an unintended consequence, there seems to be maybe an alliance that a couple of decades ago wouldn't have been possible.
That's right.
With the Saudis, Jordanians, the Egyptians, as they fear Iranian hegemony and a nuclear-armed Iran here.
There's no question that the deal with Iran, which paves the way to eventual Iranian acquisition of the critical elements of nuclear bombs, a nuclear arsenal, something we don't accept and never sign on the deal, and we won't let happen. But because many in the region are threatened by that same Iran and would be immeasurably threatened more by a nuclear-armed Iran, that has brought a lot of the countries in the region to a different thinking about Israel. And so I think this is potent with possibilities, ultimately for peace, but certainly for our common security. And I think there's a recognition of that today in Washington by President Trump by Secretary Mattis, with whom I just met.
You met with him earlier, yeah.
Yes, and by Secretary Tillerson, I talked to him as well. I think we realize that we face common challenges. And the greatest challenge is the challenge of militant Islam of both kinds. The Shiite variety led by Iran, the Sunni variety led by ISIS. Of the two, both have to be rolled back and defeated. But of the two, the greater long-term danger is from Iran. It's a country of 80 million. It's got oil. It's got other resources. It's developing submarines, developing precision-guided rockets and missiles. It's developing nuclear weapons down the line, satellites. Have that power in the hands of a militant Islamic regime, and the whole world is threatened. And therefore, a lot of in the Arab world understand it. We in Israel understand it. And I could say today that Washington understands it. That's an important change.
Well, okay, you finished where I was going. So many instances, we see what's happening now with North Korea, and they're in the news, and you got Pyongyang saber rattling, and they're out there suggesting about the United States, and they're warning of a super mighty preemptive strike against the U.S. I want to do a little history lesson here, because I have a tape of then President Bill Clinton. He had given the North Koreans $4 billion with the promise they wouldn't get nuclear weapons. I'm going to play that tape. I'm going to follow that tape with a tape of Susan Rice, John Kerry, and Barack Obama saying the red line in the sand in Syria, that would prevent any further use of chemical weapons, that it eliminated all of Assad's chemical weapons. And then I'll play Obama's promise that his nuclear deal with Iran, $150 billion, would prevent the Iranians from ever getting a nuclear weapon. Now, we're wrong about North Korea, and we're wrong about chemical weapons in Syria. Are we going to be wrong on Iran and what it would mean to the world? Let's play those tapes.
This is a good deal for the United States. North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected.
We were able to find a solution that actually removed the chemical weapons that were known from Syria in a way that the use of force would never have accomplished.
Russia has been constructive in helping to remove 100% of the declared chemical weapons from Syria.
People may criticize us for not having launched missiles against Assad after chemical weapons had been used, but keep in mind why we didn't. We didn't because they got rid of the chemical weapons.
Today, the United States, together with our allies and partners, has reached a historic understanding with Iran, which, if fully implemented, will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Your reaction?
I want to give credit to President Obama for the things we cooperated on, a lot of things, including signing MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, for a 10-year support for Israel. But we had our disagreements too. And the most fundamental disagreement was about Iran. I think the deal paves the way for Iran to get to a bomb. And I think it also paves the way for Iran's economy to get untold billions of dollars with which they can not only fund their nuclear arsenal, but also fund their aggression, which since the deal was signed has been growing in the region. And I think it's important to recognize that. I think President Trump does. I think it's important to take action, both political action and diplomatic action and economic sanctions actions, and also to take military action as President Trump did against Iran's proxy, Syria, when it used chemical weapons. I think that is an important change.
Bill Clinton was so wrong on North Korea, and they got nuclear weapons. And President Obama was so wrong about the red line resulting in the elimination of chemical weapons. Now, to me, it makes sense if you have a country that's the #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran, that repeatedly says they want to wipe your country, Israel, off the map, and also fire weapons at the United States, burn the American flag, the Israeli flag.
And kill Americans. And they nearly assassinated the Saudi ambassador.
That was in Washington.
Downtown Washington, D.C. That's Iran.
And they're fighting multiple proxy wars against you and others. Here's the question.
And your allies here.
Very true. how does the United States president give $150 billion to the #1 state sponsor of terror? Now, I know you took him on. You still say you had a decent relationship with him, though, with Obama, President Obama.
On other matters, yes, but not on this. And also on the realistic and a way to pursue peace between us and the Palestinians. But on the question of Iran, I want to make clear, I think this is important. You know, our problem with the deal, my problem was not merely that they would violate the deal, and they will wherever they can. It's that if they don't violate the deal, they walk into, within 12 years, into unimpeded enrichment of uranium, which is what you need to make bombs. And from there, the distance to making bombs is nothing. Okay, nothing. So I disagreed with that, and I didn't think, you know. And now look at what has happened. Okay, the deal has been signed. Iran's economy is improving, maybe not at the rate that they'd like, but down the line, you know, they're going to get hundreds of billions of dollars by not only because of the cash that will flow into them, but also investments that will flow into them. They'll get more lethal weapons, including in deals that they signed immediately with Russia as soon as the deal was
including for missile defense.
Right.
If Israel or the United States or allied countries want to take out those nuclear sites.
And if you add to that their aggression in the region, they moved into Yemen in a big way, which is a maritime route for the world.
And threatening the Saudis.
Not threatening, firing
at the Saudis.
Rockets and missiles into Saudi territory from Yemen. They moved into Syria. They're trying to establish a naval base on the Mediterranean. Can you imagine Iranian submarines in the Mediterranean? You have the Sixth Fleet there, you know. We have our own maritime shipping. You want Iranians there?
Nope.
No, and I said this to President Putin. I said, it's not a good idea.
What did he say?
I'll tell you what I said.
What did he say?
I said it's not in the interest of anyone,
Russia,
including Russia, to have an Iranian naval base in the Mediterranean.
But there's this alliance. You got
and I didn't hear a forceful argument there.
Damascus, Tehran, Moscow. They get along.
Well,
he props them up.
Well, I have to say that, you know, we have a good relationship with Russia. I have a good relationship with President Putin. But here's one point where we disagree. That's an understatement.
There is a new sheriff in town. You spent time with President Trump. He, this week, said that the Iranians are violating the spirit of the nuclear deal. And we can see that he and Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, are now moving in a direction to get America out from under the deal, even though I think most of the money was transferred. How important is it that they act on that?
Look, here's my position, but it's my position. Vis-a-vis the deal with Iran, you know, I would, if I had to compress it to 2 words, repeal or replace.
So those are words Americans know well.
Well, okay, but that would be my position. I think Washington has to decide its own position, but clearly one thing that has to be changed is to not let Iran have the best of all worlds, which is the worst of all worlds for Israel,
and the world.
Arab countries, the United States, the world.
The new UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, was slamming the UN Security Council just yesterday for what she called Israeli bashing sessions, and tried to refocus the Security Council on exactly what you're saying, and that is the threat of Iran and Hezbollah and terror, which the UN steadfastly refuses to focus on.
Right. Well, first of all, it's great that she's doing it, and I know that this comes from not only from her own convictions, which are real, but I think from President Trump. It's a very strong position, and it's a correct position, because what is happening in the UN is a farce. Terrible injustices are happening to women, to gays, to Christians, to Yazidis, to Muslims, you know, by these horrible regimes that permeate the globe, and the terrorist organizations that they support. And who does the UN bash? Israel, the one real democracy in the Middle East.
Effectively, we are on the tri-state border, meaning We are literally between Israel, Jordan and Syria. The villages around us here are all controlled by the Islamic State affiliate, and we see them frequently on this hill. We see them training, acrobatics, running, and we've even heard them firing, shooting, target practice. It's around 40,000, 50,000 Syrian residents that live in that area, with about 1,000 Islamic State operatives that manage the area. Just a few months ago, we had ISIS affiliates target an IDF patrol that were operating not far from here. They targeted them, they actually missed, and in our response we killed 4 of their operatives, took out their position. They had actually set up their position in an abandoned United Nations facility, so that is now no longer poses a threat, and we sent a clear message: if you mess with us, you're going to pay dearly. And this is just one parcel, the Islamic State, which is one problem. Going further north you have other forces linked to Al-Qaeda. And going further north even to where the Hermon is, we have Hezbollah. So everywhere we look east from the border between Israel and Syria, we see negativity on the other side.
And welcome back to Hannity. So earlier this week, an IDF spokesman gave our Hannity producers a tour of Israel's northern border with Syria. Today, I asked Prime Minister Netanyahu about how his country has been impacted by the instability in the region and much more. Watch this. It's interesting because we see the saber-rattling of Kim Jong-un in North Korea and the threat that he made, again, a super mighty preemptive strike he's talking about against the United States of America. And this perhaps should be factored into when we talk about Iran, and that is that North Korea has nuclear weapons. Now, they would like ICBM capability, marry those nuclear weapons, then they'd have the capability of reaching the continental United States. I guess my question is, if you have a nuclear-armed Iran, how do you stop? How does the United States militarily stop him, Kim Jong-un, from getting ICBM capability when we know he has the capability of launching nuclear weapons at Japan, China, South Korea? How do you stop that at that point? It's too late.
Let me talk about Iran. I think it's immensely dangerous to have a regime which is not merely a rogue regime, but one here, in this case of Iran, which is, I think Henry Kissinger put it best. He said, it's a cause, it's not a country, Iran. What is the cause?
Caliphate.
The cause is to dominate first the Middle East and then the world with a Shiite revivalism, and to subjugate or remove anybody that stands in their way. First in the Muslim world and then anybody else.
Convert, die.
Or
die.
Yeah. Okay, now you'd say, well, that's madness. It can't be that in the beginning of the 21st century, you know, there are still regimes and movements, causes that believe in this madness. Is it really? Cannot be? Of course it can. It is. It's right before our eyes. And what you see in ISIS is small compared to what you could see with Iran. They too have a cause. They think we're the ones who should be dominant. Mm-hmm. You know, the world should be an Islamist hill, and we're going to be king of the hill. And that's what they're fighting with the Iranian Shiites. Who's going to be king of this Islamist hill? But they don't disagree that it only has a room for those who adopt and accept through submission their version of Islam. So who's resisting it? First of all, other Muslims, they don't want to go down this path. And of course, non-Muslims like us, we don't want to go down that path either. So we've made common cause to stop these people. But the question right now is, what will happen in this battle if an Islamist state, an Islamist terrorist state, which is what Iran is, the preeminent terrorist state of our time, has the weapons of mass terror, nuclear weapons. You can imagine that this mad scheme, this mad ideology will have the powers to intimidate the world and do irreparable damage. We cannot allow that to happen. In the case of Iran, clearly it hasn't yet happened. And if we are resolute in our policies, very firm in our policies, we can make sure it doesn't happen.
And welcome back to Hannity, and we are broadcasting tonight from Israel. And earlier today, before my interview with the Prime Minister, I was given a tour of the country from the air in a helicopter. Take a look at Isreals Boarders.
So here we are, we're just leaving an airport in Tel Aviv. So the Mediterranean Sea on the side. This is the edge of Tel Aviv over here. We're heading up north to Haifa, and then we'll get the proximity of Israel being surrounded by Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and Egypt. So to give people, you know, just the size and proximity of just how small a country this is, and over the years, starting in, let's say, 67 war, the 73 war, how important defensible borders are for Israel, especially in light of being surrounded by a lot of enemies. So from Tel Aviv, where is the closest border where rockets have been fired into Tel Aviv?
If we're speaking about rockets, Gaza Strip.
Gaza Strip.
Which is about 60 kilometers and even less.
Yeah.
But that can launch to Tel Aviv. During the last operation, 2014, they tried to launch a few
I was
rockets.
here when that happened.
Yeah. So at one time, a few times we intercepted that by Iron Dome, and only one time it penetrated the Iron Dome and
got it to Tel Aviv.
It got to Rishon LeZion, which is a bit south to Tel Aviv, but this is Tel Aviv metropolitan.
To give somebody maybe in the United States a little bit of perspective, that the landmass of Israel is probably the size of a state like what, New Jersey?
New Jersey. Like New Jersey. Yeah. There are only 3 states, I think, in the U.S. which are smaller than Israel by its territory, and all the other are all
are bigger.
Much bigger.
Yeah.
Than Israel.
Here you can see the proximity. This is an Israeli. The red roofs are Israeli community.
Right here.
Community inside Israel. It's within the Green Line.
But outside
then
of that,
then you see the Green Line. You see the wall.
Yep.
And behind the wall is the city of Tulkarem. So here you see how it is connected to each other. They stick to each other. It's less than 200 meters between the Israeli side, the Israeli community, and the Palestinian community on the other side of the fence.
And then if you pan to the right with the camera, then that goes to the Mediterranean. That's
Yes, exactly.
That's an 8-mile width.
Yes.
Understood. Okay. When people in the United States, they talk about land for peace, what are they talking about in this general area?
In this general area, because of the city of Tulkarem, which is a huge one,
right?
It is very clear that what they have in mind is the line will be very near to what you see today. I mean, Tulkarem will be included in the Palestinian side.
Right.
It means that Israel in this area, the depth of Israel in this area, will be only 8 miles. This is the clear consequences of an agreement with the Palestinians. Israel will lose its ability to have any depth in this area.
Well, 8 miles is not a defendable border. It's impossible.
It's not a defendable border, and when it is coming to terror and using missiles, rockets and so on, it's very close to the target, and the ability to defend Israeli cities from launches or rockets and missiles might be launched from the Palestinian side is very narrow because of the proximity.
This is al-Fahim, an Israeli Arab community from one side. From the other side you see the village which is called Anim. This is the Palestinian one. In between today there is a sim line. Okay? But before 2003 I think there was no fence at all in that area, and a lot of suicide bombers came from Jenin area.
So in other words, right here at the top of the hill is an Israeli neighborhood.
Yes.
Right to the right is a Palestinian neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you have a border fence in between.
Yes.
And there's basically a separation. Fair to say?
Today there is a separation, although there are cross borders.
Right.
There in some areas here, but in that area before the sim line was operated, it was very easy. You see.
So you got an Israeli city and you got a Palestinian city.
And they can go by foot to that area, take a car down here. From here.
Is that a mosque there in the Israeli area?
Yes,
it's an Arab community.
Arab community which is called al-Fahim. From al-Fahim to Tel Aviv, 40 minutes driving.
So the mosque is in
al-Fahim.
Yes, in the Arab communities there are many mosques. It's a free country religiously.
We're going to land. We started in Tel Aviv and we made our way around the west to Jerusalem. Now we're over at this point, and Mount Olives, the Temple Mount, the Knesset we just passed, all of which is 20 miles away from Jordan. There really is no space.
Welcome back to Hannity. So earlier today, President Trump met with Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas at the White House. They held a joint press conference where President Trump called for peace between the Israelis and Palestinians. Let's take a look.
I'm committed to working with Israel and the Palestinians to reach an agreement. But any agreement cannot be imposed by the United States or by any other nation. The Palestinians and Israelis must work together to reach an agreement that allows both peoples to live, worship, and thrive and prosper in peace. But there can be no lasting peace unless the Palestinian leaders speak in a unified voice against incitement to violate and violence and hate. There's such hatred, but hopefully there won't be such hatred for very long.
When I was recently in Israel, I asked the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, about the prospect of peace and the Palestinian Authority that actually, as a matter of law, reward terrorists for attacking and killing Israelis. This was his response.
The first test of peace is to say to them, hey, you want peace? Prove it. Confront terrorism. Stop rewarding terrorism. Stop paying terrorists. And don't finagle the books. You know, what they do is, okay, we won't pay it directly, we'll pay it to somebody else, and they'll pay it to the terrorists, you know, in a sort of circular fashion. No. Come clean on this. Stop paying terrorists.
Here with reaction, former Arkansas governor, Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee. He just returned from Israel a couple of days ago. Governor, this is a matter of law with the Palestinian Authority. Number one, they don't recognize Israel's right to exist. Number two, as a matter of law, they pay terrorists or their families or their families that remain after they kill Israelis or Americans. That's a matter of law. How do you begin the peace process if you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars paying these families and rewarding them for killing Israelis?
Well, you don't have peace when you do that, Sean, and you've just been there as well. Look, the Israelis would love to have peace, but you don't have peace when you teach the children in the schools in the Palestinian Authority to hate Jews, and you name streets and you name parks after terrorists. They're heralded as heroes. And Abbas may say nice things when he's at the White House, but this is the same Abbas who made a fiery speech to the Arab League not long ago in which he said, yes, we will continue to incite. So if you listen carefully to what he said today at the White House, he also said we've got to go back to the 67 borders.
No.
That's a suicide pact for Israel. There's no way they can do that. Dividing Jerusalem, Sean, is like Solomon trying to divide the baby. You're going to kill the baby doing it. Jerusalem has to be a united city. It has never been the capital of anybody but the Jews. That's the only people who ought to have Jerusalem as a capital.
Well, agreed. I know the president is thinking about that. I agree that that should happen. But even with that said, I actually took a tour of the old city. I had a little extra time this trip, which I didn't have on previous trips, where they have the Armenian sector and the Muslim sector and the Jewish sector and the Christian sector. And it's amazing in this very small area space that there can be peaceful coexistence. But again, the PA is paying the terrorists as a matter of law. They don't recognize Israel's right to exist. Where do you begin the discussion in terms of peace? I don't think you can until they change.
Well, you really can't, Sean. And one of the things, Jerusalem right now is a city that is under Israeli control, and they're very respectful of Muslims, of Christians, and Jews. Can you name me any Muslim place in the world in which churches are being built and synagogues are being respected in the Muslim world? Do we really believe that if Jerusalem were split in half and part of it would go to the Palestinians, which, let me just be very clear, it's controversial. There's really no such thing as a Palestinian nation or a Palestinian people. It's a geographical term. It's not an ethnic term. And until 1962, when Yasser Arafat invented the term Palestinian to apply it to a group of people that he wanted to lead as a terrorist, there was no such thing. And in fact, anyone who lived in Palestine, including Jews, were called Palestinians.
All right, Governor, good to see you as always. Hope you had a good trip, and we appreciate you being with us.